Improving the system for ensuring the safety of workers in the mining industry on the basis of risk management. Introduction. The most vulnerable link in the current approaches to the prevention of occupational diseases was the lack of, first, a regulatory and methodological framework for calculating risks, building work regimes. Second, methods of stimulating economic interest in carrying out activities through the system of compulsory social insurance. Third, conducting in-depth medical examination of minors and social rehabilitation measures. In this regard, it is necessary to develop new conceptual approaches to the prevention of occupational diseases of workers of coal enterprises based on the development of methodological principles for managing the risk of occupational diseases in coal mines, which make it possible to increase the effectiveness of preventive measures. The importance of the work is in the implementation of a systematic analysis of the harmful production factors impact, taking into account working conditions, the intensity and duration of these factors impact of miners through their work experience in order to prevent, timely diagnose and treat patients with occupational diseases. The purpose of the work is to develop a system of events for improving the level of safety in the mining industry on the basis of risk management, which will reduce the dynamics of occupational diseases at work. Research objectives: analysis of the state of occupational morbidity in the coal industry and the regulatory legal framework for the investigation and registration of cases of occupational diseases. Identification of indicators of the significance of harmful production factors to establish the etiology and causes of occupational diseases at typical workplaces of workers in an underground group of coal mines. Establishment of patterns of development of occupational diseases dependent on the specific working conditions, tensions or severity, and development of risk of management methods. Development of a set of indicators for assessing the effectiveness of the functioning of the labor protection management system to reduce the risk of occupational diseases and the classification of working conditions and occupational diseases, development of an algorithm for managing the risk of occupational diseases for workers who work at mining enterprises. Development of methodological principles for managing the risk of occupational diseases, development of an algorithm and mechanism for transforming the exciting system for the prevention of occupational diseases and mining enterprises. On this slide you can see the structure by production factors that cause occupational diseases. In the structure of occupational morbidity of workers in the mining industry, the largest specific fate is made up of diseases of dust etiology, musculoskeletal system and vibration diseases. In industry, most of the industrial production personnel work at elevated levels of dust content, 58%, noise, 55%, vibration, 28%, chemical factors, 14%, humidity, 40%. And temperatures that don't meet sanitary standards, 15%. Figure first shows the structure by production factors that cause occupational diseases. Results and discussion. As a result of research and application of mathematical methods of analysis, the regulators of the risk of occurrence of certain types of occupational diseases in workers were identified and presented, depending on the profession and work experience. The results obtained make it possible to predict the occurrence of an occupational disease in workers depending on the length of service and the enterprise. For this purpose, data on identified occupational diseases at more than 10 coal enterprises from 2015 to 2021 were used, taking into account the total number of workers employed in production. The resulting cumulative dependence between these parameters are shown in Figure 2. On this slide you can see values of indicators on the dependence of occupational disease on the length of service and profession in coal mines. Taking into account risk factors, professional length of service in hazardous conditions, type of exposure to harmful and dangerous production factors, or the occurrence of an occupational disease and establishing a dose-related dependence of the occurrence of a certain type of occupational disease in a particular profession, allows you to predict a possible occupational disease and redistribute the quality and level of control over working conditions and health of the staff. The main stages of the proposed methodology for classifying by the level of risk of occupational diseases are the choice of parameters by which the object is delimited, formation of a training sample, choice of object delimitation method, establishing and the homogeneity of the selected object. On this slide, you can see dependence of the coefficient of working conditions and the value of specific occupational morbidity in coal mines. In order to characterize the level of efficiency of the functioning of the labor protection management system of an enterprise in terms of managing the risk of occupational diseases, it's proposed to use the efficiency coefficient of the labor protection management system. To select the optimal management solution for the transforming of the labor protection management system, it's proposed to discussion the effectiveness of its work into three levels. Conclusions. The result of the investigation of cases of occupational morbidity indicates the insufficient effectiveness of their prevention. This is due, first of all, to the fact that the labor protection management system of enterprises is not aimed to preventing and preventing occupational diseases, but in fact at fixing them. Taking into account the risk factors for the occurrence of an occupational disease, which makes it possible to establish a time dependence of the occurrence a certain type of occupational disease in a particular profession, makes it possible to predict a possible occupational disease and redistribute the quality and level of control over working conditions and the health of personnel. To implement the principle of different management of labor protection, it's proposed to classify mines according to working conditions and occupational diseases. The most effective method of such classifications is the method of principal components. Depending on the specific working conditions, tension, severity, the use of assessed methods and criteria for assessing the effectiveness on the functional and the labor protection management system in terms of prevention of occupational diseases. Application of an algorithm for choosing the optimal set for preventive measures to reduce the risk of occupational diseases while maintaining the material well-being for the employer. Thank you very much for your attention.